and welcome back to Wake Up with Dr. Cheryl and Wealth Transformation. I'd like to start with something funny. What did the Buddhist say to the hot dog vendor? Make me one with everything. The purpose of our show is to raise the consciousness and healing with your relationship with wealth and currency and apply unconditional love. We are in a phenomenal era in our lifetime, right now with everything happening around the world. This is a time to wake up in bringing the love, integrity, and ethics back into your family life, which extends into your work life. It's all the same, transparency. We all need to treat others the way we want to be treated. Why are humans so stubborn? This is a subject I'm writing about in my next book. Change is good. If you are not growing and changing, you're dying. Why resist it? It is a fact of life, and I know sometimes change isn't easy. But if you aren't expanding your mind, emotions, and spirit, how will you feel and think clearly? Don't get stuck. The world is a dangerous place to live, not because of the people who are evil, but because of the people who don't do anything about it. Our guest this evening is Fred Luskin. This is the first segment of a two-part discussion with Fred Luskin. Dr. Fred Luskin has completed extensive research on the training and measurement of forgiveness therapy. His research demonstrates that learning forgiveness leads to increased physical vitality, hope, greater enhanced optimism, and conflict resolution skills. It also shows that forgiveness lessens the physical and emotional toll of stress and decreases hurt, anger, depression, and blood pressure. He has worked with men and women from both sides of the violence in Northern Ireland who has had family members killed, and with different groups of financial advisors after the stock market crash of 2000 to enhance their conflict resolution and stress management skills. Dr. Luskin is the author of the bestseller, Forgive for Good, a proven prescription for health and happiness and stress-free for good. He has worked with many organizations and has trained lawyers, doctors, church leaders, and congregations, hospital staffs, teachers, and other professionals to manage stress and enhance forgiveness all over the United States. Dr. Luskin's work has been featured in Time Magazine, O Magazine, Ladies' Home Journal, U.S. News, World Reports, Parade, Prevention, as well as the New York Times, Los Angeles Times, Chicago Tribune, USA Today, and Wall Street. Whew, that's a lot. Fred Luskin, PhD, is a director of the Stanford University Forgiveness Projects and an associate professor at the Institute of Transpersonal Psychology. He also serves as the co-chair of the Garden of Forgiveness Project at Ground Zero in Manhattan. Hello, Fred. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I know that we didn't really meet officially at the forgiveness event at Dominican, and I wanted to, but now we get to meet. And thank you for coming on the show. And I wanted you to come on because of your forgiveness project and who you are with Stanford and what you're doing. And I'd like you to share some of that. I've already given the viewers a background on you, but please tell us more before we can get into a good conversation.
I teach forgiveness. I've done research on forgiveness. And I'm just one of those people who thinks that practicing it is good. And when I say that, I mean not for extraordinary things, but for normal things, like people you love who don't do what you want, or people who cut you off in traffic. Those are good exemplars to practice forgiveness.
As a day-to-day thing.
That's exactly right.
So practice what you preach. Walk the talk and talk the walk.
Well, I don't know how many people actually preach forgiveness.
No, I know, but I guess what I'm saying is that when you're aware of forgiving others, I mean, you free yourself, obviously.
You do.
And the more you can be aware to do that, it's like, then you're free.
I had a, I mean, this is a little bit, how would I say, not scatological, but I once went to a retreat center from a Christian tradition, and I came in and I was going to do a week-long series of talks on forgiveness, maybe an hour each day, stuff like that. And I start talking, and a couple of people like literally jump out of the audience saying, "What do you mean forgive?" The person I had to dealt with was a terrible human being. And the most interesting thing is there were like figures of Christ hanging around the auditorium because we were in a Christian retreat center.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And I remember thinking and saying to them, take the program. Like, from what I can see, Christ was believed in Christianity. Don't argue with me. Like, that's your methodology. And I think a little bit of that's what you're saying. It's like, preach it, do it, especially if you say you believe in it.
Well, and you don't necessarily have to talk about it, but live it, be it,
Right.
do it. I mean, that's with unconditional love. What I talk about is you practice it in every conscious moment that you can,
Right.
and you don't have to talk about it really, because you're an example. You're doing it. You're taking the action and doing it.
And you use your failures as information.
Yes, as growing, for
Right,
growing.
exactly. So what I have done is figured out how to teach people to forgive and then tested it out in different situations.
How do you do that?
How do I teach people to
Yes,
forgive?
how do you do that? You know, maybe just one example. I'm sure that you've dealt with many different kinds of people, but you know, just one that comes to mind. How do you do that when somebody is really stubborn and doesn't want to let go of that? How do you do that?
Most people don't want to let go. In fact, one of the things that we found in our research was we once did a research project with people who had had their family members murdered. And they rated their hurt as, I think, an 8.6 on a scale of 10, or an 8.8. And then we did another project where it was just normal people who had been hurt by like normal life, and they rated their hurt almost the same. And so there's something about, now I'm not saying that the intensity was the same, but the disturbance for each of them felt equally strong.
It's all relative to
It's all
whoever.
relative,
Yeah.
but the tenacity with which people hold on to being wronged is like this. It's like,
I mean, I think that is a major issue for everyone on this planet.
I think so.
And it's huge because
It's huge.
and it's partially, I mean, from, you know, this is one thing, is being so stubborn. You know, and that's one of the subjects that I started writing a book about, is why people are so stubborn not to let go. When you realize that the freedom that comes with letting go.
Right.
My gosh. But anyway, how do you
Well,
really get to them?
I actually refer it as a center of the universe problem. That people tend to mistake their egocentric functioning, which places them at the center of a make-up universe, with actually being at the center of a universe. So even though we are the center of our senses and how we perceive the world, we're not actually the center of anything. And so that's all made up and that's all ridiculous, but we act as if we're the center. And then when we act as if we're the center of the universe, we can easily get offended and upset when the rest of the world doesn't acknowledge our centrality.
Yeah.
And unforgiveness is from holding on to that position as I'm the center of the universe.
Wow. Wow. I mean, that information right there, to me, is very powerful because, and it brings back to my own experience of letting go of the ego and having that alignment with your higher self.
Well, right.
That's the key for my experience and many people that I know that are in my circle. I mean, you know, they're all in different levels.
That's right.
You know, but when you are in alignment with that higher self, we call it God, Spirit, Universe, Divine, whatever you want to label it, whatever, call it. But when you can let go and you can be free of that ego.
As long as you understand that letting go shouldn't happen immediately. Yeah. That as human beings we have to grieve our losses. Right. We're not that insensitive and we're not that removed that we can just say pain doesn't exist or suffering isn't real. Because part of what that does, I've met some fake spiritual types who try to make believe that they're not touched by the world's suffering, and then they become insensitive to other people's pain. We're all vulnerable.
Absolutely.
And we all get hurt. The thing is, you want to feel it, you just don't want to stay there.
No, right. And I think people stay there, but they don't grieve it.
They don't fully grieve it.
Yeah, to let it go.
To let it go.
To let it go.
But you have to feel it deeply before you let it go.
An example of that just came to mind is, and I think this is wonderful, you know, all the Vietnam vets and the Iraqi vets and everything that have been hurt, you know, seeing the death over and over and over. Now the military are sending the ones that have been hurt, they're sending them back there so they can feel and let go.
Wow.
I mean, this is huge. This is huge. I saw this like 4 or 5 months ago.
Wow.
I saw a special on it, and I thought this is humongous. This is monumental for healing the vets. I mean, that's just one example.
Interesting.
But you know, and people, my feeling is that people are afraid to allow themselves to feel, because they're afraid they're going to get stuck in that feeling.
Right, and it'll be too much.
Yeah, and the thing is, when you realize, when you go back into the hurt and that suffering that you had, and not push it away, you feel it, you grieve it, you cry, you do, you know, and write.
And you pound the wall if you have to.
I mean, I've been known to take a tennis racket and slam it on the bed.
No kidding.
You know, to get it out of my body.
As long as there's nobody lying on the bed.
Oh, no, of course not. I know. You're not hurting anybody. You may break the racket.
Exactly.
And I'd rather break the racket and not hurt myself or anybody else. But, you know, it's important to get that out of your body. That's one thing I wanted to talk about with you.
And to acknowledge that you have been violated. Yes. It's just the problem is to not stay in that position. Exactly. That's the key thing.
Yes, absolutely. And I believe, my understanding is that you've been part of studies about how forgiveness affects us physiologically. So please tell us about.
Well, you could tell me even. It's so obvious. I mean, I remember when we started getting data that if you forgave more, you were more healthy. And I thought, I could ask a kindergarten kid, like, do you think if you stay pissed off and angry, you're going to be happy? Or if you let it go and have more smiles, you're going to be happy? I mean, it's, in some ways, this is weird science, which everybody knows this. But you'll lower your blood pressure if you get less angry. I mean, duh. And you will be, the subtle things is, besides the effect on the nervous system and some immune function, is when we forgive stuff and let it go, we're actually coping better. And that brings confidence and reduces depression and reduces anxiety. Because if, let's say you've hurt me and I can't cope with it well, then I'm scared of you until I learn how to cope with it.
Right. And
so I carry around this threat with me all the time that there's something in this world that I haven't figured out how to handle. And that's a terrible experience.
And it's a waste of time, beautiful, wonderful life, energy time.
Of course. But wasting time, people do very well. I mean, we'll watch hours a day of TV, right?
Well,
I think that the average home, the TV's turned on about 6 hours a day.
I'm lucky sometimes. I mean, I go days without watching it.
Of course.
Days.
Right, me too.
I don't want to waste my time.
But wasting time, people don't mind doing.
Yeah, because they don't want to deal with reality.
That's one of my perceptions, but I can't know that. I will tell you, though, that when we do some of these classes of education and we remind people that it'll affect your heart rate or it'll affect the way your liver metabolizes certain chemicals, they do pay more attention than if we just say, be a nice person.
Yeah, right.
Be a nice person.
They want proof.
They want proof. And their bodies matter more to them than their spirits.
Oh, wow. And it's all in one. I mean, our bodies are our temples. That's
mean,
what I
you think
believe.
that.
I believe that.
I understand that, but I don't think that's a common consciousness.
Wow. Well, we're trying to help elevate the consciousness around that.
Yeah,
Right?
and that's when you were saying if you live kind of goodwill, then you can be a reminder that the universe can be caring and benign.
Yeah.
But there's so much cruelty and there's so much insensitivity that many people get a perception that the universe is dangerous. Because so many people are selfish and willing to do what they need to do just for their own benefit and don't care what happens to the other person. That does affect people, not just for whom it occurs, but reading about it and seeing about it.
It makes me tighten up when you say that.
Well, okay.
I mean, because I know it's the truth.
You know it's the truth.
I know
exactly.
it's the truth. But it just, to me, it's not really living.
You don't want to live in that world.
No.
Yeah, I know.
No. And it's like I'll read about the headlines on the news and what's going on in the day, in the world, but I don't want to immerse myself in it because I don't want to take in that emotion,
Totally
that
understand.
negative emotion.
Right.
So I block that out.
I mean, the only caveat with that is, I mean, I don't know your inner reality, but often people do that not to care.
Oh, no.
Like when they see TV and there's, you know, like in Syria where 100,000 people were killed, they want to go like this. Because if we really take in that the world hurts so many people, we would have to make a commitment to try to help. And we don't want to make that commitment.
Isn't that easy, though?
What's that?
To me, that's easy to try to help.
But it's not a common experience.
The
Yeah,
majority
most people would rather go like this so they don't know about it. And we all do that. I mean, to some degree.
I guess to a degree. Yeah,
we're
it
all
depends.
indifferent. Like at tonight, 1 billion people will go to bed without food in the world.
1 billion?
1 billion. The World Health Organization about 18 months ago announced that for the first time in this planet, 1 billion people go to bed hungry.
Imagine that.
No, neither can I.
I mean, there's 7 billion, maybe a little bit more.
That's right. There's a little more than
and 1/7 of
about 1/7 to go to bed without food, and somewhere around there,
my
and there's
God.
another 1/7 who go to bed or have not enough water. So a nice.
I'm really surprised by those statistics.
Well,
Wow.
you know,
Wow.
there's whole swatches of Africa
Yeah.
and Asia and places where there's just famine and horror. But what I'm saying is you and I can sit here and function fine even though that's true. So we're all indifferent to some degree about the amount of suffering that exists on this planet. And it's part of being a human being that we tend not to care enough. And so
Are you saying if you care enough, you'll do something about it? Contribute to
if we
helping?
wanted to see, we would. And yet we're all somewhat protective, so we don't have to see how, again,
Do you think that's a self-preservation?
I do.
I mean,
But it's a self-preservation and a self-obsession.
Interesting.
It's both.
Yeah.
But it keeps us from, again, living our lives in ways that might be of more service to the whole.
Oh, yeah.
But it's also overwhelming. I mean, what do you do if you know this, that, or the other thing? What can you do? So this is one of the things that I think about and I teach people, that one of the reasons not to get so caught up in all the suffering that you've had is that it's a drop in the big bucket. And accept that suffering is part of what it is to be a human being on this planet.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Which is kind of the Buddha's first noble truth.
Mm-hmm. Very true.
And that helps you get out of the self-centeredness that you're the only one who's been lied to or cheated or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So that's one of the methods that we use, and it's been effective to remind people that, wait a second, there's a whole big world out there with lots of pain.
Yeah. And we're only one of the 7 billion.
Right. Right.
And there's so many different degrees
There's
of
so many
pain and
different
suffering
degrees.
that are happening.
That's right. And instead of just being wrapped up in your pain, realize that there's, again, this is just the simplest beginnings.
Right.
I mean, Buddhists don't actually talk about this kind of suffering, but they talk about the inevitability of suffering. If you see it as inevitable, it's not as personal.
Mm-hmm.
And it's when we take things too personally that we get all upset and stay stuck.
Well,
That's a long answer to your question.
No, that's good. That's good. I say not necessarily suffering, but I say challenges.
Okay.
That's what I use.
And you're right. And that there was a research project that looked at asking people to substitute problems for the word challenges.
Because it's an opportunity.
And it made them
and
less.
See, I've used that for a long time.
It made people less stressed. Just that very simple substitution.
Because when you think of suffering, I mean, my heart feels that. Even
I
when
can see that.
When I say that word,
Yeah.
you know, when I feel it, it's like, oh my God, you know.
Right.
And then when I think, when you say that 1/7 of the population,
I know.
I'm
I mean, it's not
overwhelmed.
quite 1/7, but
I'm
it's
overwhelmed,
close.
but even that's a phenomenal amount
I
of
know.
people.
I know.
So I'm overwhelmed by it, and it makes me look at things a little bit differently. Just hearing that.
I think that's the point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, well, we've talked about my show's purpose, and I've already, that the viewers who are watching got that in the beginning, and I'd like to be able to talk about how forgiveness and wealth and currency are hand in hand.
Okay.
And I'm sure you have a lot to say about that, or that you could say about it.
Some of the stuff that I deal with is forgiving oneself for having made mistakes. So when you talk about wealth, a lot of stuff that people struggle with is financial failure, financial ruin, failed investments, stupid job decisions, not seeing...
Trusting the wrong people with your money.
Trusting the wrong people with your money, not knowing which company, you know, somebody decided to work for X and turned down a job from Facebook. There are so many ways that we can beat ourselves up. So one of the aspects that I see forgiveness related to wealth is to be able to absorb the pain of having made bad decisions at times.
What do you mean absorb?
Forgiveness is the quality of taking anger or self-pity about something and kind of remetabolizing it so it's just what happened.
Yeah, right.
It's
and then letting it go.
It's just it. That's it. It's just what is.
Or using it not to make the same mistake again.
Exactly. So that's reabsorbing the negative emotion. It's like,
Okay.
here I'm like this, now I'm like this. That's the manifestation of forgiveness. Unforgiveness is almost always tight.
Yeah. Restrictive.
Yeah. Restrictive, exactly. And it's, and then it can be, it is. And so I think I was just saying that we reabsorb that energy.
Oh, okay. To heal it.
To heal.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
And I think that goes with anything, you know, that when you're hurt,
Yeah.
is reabsorbing. Okay. That
would be my
totally.
guess.
Okay. So, do you think it's important to forgive yourself, like for a financial situation, to forgive yourself first? I mean, if somebody did something that was really evil, or you know, I like for myself, I trusted someone that I shouldn't have trusted, and I got scammed.
That what?
I got scammed.
Ooh.
So I trusted the wrong person.
Right.
And you know, in my practice, I
Wow.
must forgive that person, because that person, even though that person's evil,
That's true.
I have to forgive that person to set myself free.
Right.
But the hardest thing for me has been to forgive myself, because I made that choice, and then I go back to not trusting myself.
Right. The one thing I would suggest in that conceptualization, there aren't that many people who are evil.
Yeah.
But there are people who act in evil ways.
Yeah.
And some
I agree.
people may be evil towards you because they stole your money, but they might come home and be very loving to their children. So, I mean, I don't know that.
No, yeah.
One of the things that I used to talk about, because I wanted people not to be so judgmental, was that if there was a room of 1,000 cows, if they were having like a cow convention, Adolf Hitler would be welcome with no problem because he was a vegetarian. So he didn't harm, I mean, he harmed cows when he bombed everybody,
Right,
but
right.
he personally didn't eat animals. And yet there's a lot of people who are self-respecting who eat animals who would be a grave threat to cows.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a sense of like how personally you take it, and a judgment based on limited information. Now, I'm not excusing Adolf Hitler's behavior. I'm just saying that we tend to call evil that which affects us.
I'll leave you with this. Money is like love. It kills slowly and painfully the one who withholds it, and enlivens the other who turns it on his fellow man, by Kehal Gibran. Never give up on your pursuit of your purpose and your passion, and even if you don't know what that is, work with integrity and have a positive attitude wherever you work, and first with your family and friends. Be grateful for what you have, who you are, and where you've come from. Be grateful for your freedom and eat healthy. Good nutrition feeds the mind and the body temple. And don't forget to keep moving your body by working out. Feed your spirituality with meditation and prayer, with unconditional love. And firstly, love yourself unconditionally and share your abundance and wealth with others. Thanks for watching. Please support Marin TV that brings these messages. And remember, when fear knocks, let faith answer the door. All of you viewers out there from Marin County, can you please contact me and let us know who you are and what city you live in as a viewer. This is really important for the survival of Marin TV and our shows. I will give you my email address and phone number at the bottom of the screen and in the credits at the end of the show to reach me, to let us know. Thank you in advance and for your efforts and cooperation. Bye for now, until next time.